Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the place you come to get those key insights from a whole range of sources, leaving you informed, maybe even a bit surprised.
That's the goal.
Okay, so today let's unpack this really big one, maybe the ultimate question. Human origins. Where did we actually come from?
Right. It's fundamental.
Our mission today is to look at some really different stories about how humankind began. We're going beyond the familiar stuff into, well, ancient wisdom, some geology, even quantum physics concepts.
Quite a mix.
Yeah, and for this deep dive, we're pulling from Sanathan Dharma, Origins of Life and Mankind by Hanshi Deena Naidu.
Okay.
Now, Hanshi Deena Naidu, he's not just an author. He's a master of karate, also Keihatsu, that's about vital energy and Reiki. Plus, he teaches something called spirit-mind awareness, SMA, all over the world.
So a background steeped in both martial arts and spiritual or energetic practices.
Exactly. So this isn't just about comparing stories. It feels more like looking at totally different ways of viewing existence itself, how we see the world, who we think we are.
And what's fascinating here, I think, is the chance Naidu gives us to compare these really divergent views on such a core question, creation itself. Mm-hmm. For you listening, it's a chance to see how different traditions tackle this beginning point and maybe have one of those aha moments about just how broad human belief can be.
Yeah, those moments are great.
We're basically looking at what seems like a really ancient story, but through a surprisingly modern lens.
Yeah.
Almost scientific in a way.
Right. That quantum connection later is definitely unexpected. But first, Naidu really dives straight in, doesn't he? Challenging conventional beliefs.
He does. No beating around the bush.
He says Sanathan Dharma, which, is often seen as the root of Hinduism, this ancient tradition offers the only true narrative for how life began. Purely.
The only true one. That's a strong claim.
It is, and he specifically calls out other beliefs, naming the Adam and Eve story as incorrect, assumptions, falsehoods, and parables, and untrue stories of life.
Wow. Okay, so he's not mincing words.
Not at all. And here's where it gets really interesting. His specific critique of Adam and Eve. He points out quite directly that if you take that story literally as the start of humankind, then, quote, the entire human race began with incest.
Ah, okay. That's his logical deduction from the narrative?
Yes, and he calls that a grossly incorrect assessment of how life began. Full stop.
Right.
He argues, look, that act would have been wrong then, just like it's wrong now. So how could humanity evolve from participating in, as he puts it, sinful acts right at the origin?
It's a moral consistency argument he's making there based on his interpretation.
Exactly. It's a stark challenge to that foundational story's, let's say, internal logic, if taken literally.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, you see many traditions, spiritual, philosophical, they all sort of grapple with the implications of their own origin stories.
Sure, that makes sense.
Naidu's critique is one perspective on that process, focusing on what he sees as a major flaw in a literal reading of that specific story.
So it's about the framework used to judge credibility.
Precisely. Different traditions have different tests, you could say. It forces us to think about literal versus allegorical readings, too.
Yeah.
It's useful, regardless of your own beliefs, to see how these narratives hold up internally for those who follow them. But it's key. We're presenting Naidu's view from his book here, not saying we agree or disagree.
Absolutely, just laying out his argument. And, okay, so after challenging that narrative, he offers Sanathan Dharma's alternative.
Right, he doesn't just critique, he provides his own account.
He says Sanathan Dharma was created, get this, 20,000 years in the Age of Truth. And within that, the first human community was called Manu.
A community, not a pair. That's interesting.
Yeah, and here's a huge distinction he makes. The Manu community was, quote, of various races, not just one.
Various races, right at the beginning.
Right at the beginning. So diversity isn't something that evolved later in this year. It was inherent.
That contrasts sharply with many other origin narratives.
Totally. And he also tackles geography. He says this community did not start in Africa.
Oh, where then?
Well, he says at that point, there was no Africa as we know it. The landmass was one, surrounded by sea.
Like Pangaea, or something similar.
Kind of sounds like it. He says it separated and divided over time through natural processes. So a very different map, a different starting point, and built-in diversity.
This raises an important question then about how we conceive of origin. A community of various races appearing together. That's a fundamentally different model.
It really is.
It suggests diversity is like primordial, baked in from the start. And the idea of a single landmass splitting I mean, that resonates with our geological understanding, plate tectonics and all that.
Yeah, it's an interesting parallel.
Even though he's placing it in this ancient spiritual context, it's quite a blend.
It is.
And stepping back, just seeing these different stories, it really does enrich our appreciation for how different cultures view humanity, our place. You know, it shows this deep need we have to explain where we came from.
And the sheer creativity in those explanations. But then Naidu takes it somewhere even more unexpected, this quantum mechanics connection.
Ah, yes, this is where it gets really unique.
He basically asks, okay, how can a human community just appear?
Right.
That's the problem.
A fair question if you're positing that kind of origin.
And his answer involves, surprisingly, quantum mechanics. He draws this parallel. He says, in a laboratory, a proton can be teleported. It is a proven theory.
Okay, teleportation. That's a big leap.
Well, he describes it as a particle appearing from somewhere else through dematerialization and materialization. Now, to be clear, he seems to be using quantum teleportation more as an analogy, right? It's about transferring a quantum state, not beaming Scotty up.
Right, it's not literal physical teleportation of complex objects. That's important context.
Yeah.
It's an analogy for appearing or shifting states.
Exactly. He uses it to suggest how beings could sort of materialize. He then builds on it, saying, everything that seems solid is not really solid when you look closely, like under an electron microscope.
Uh-huh. The whole matter is mostly empty space idea on a quantum level.
Yeah, and that leads him to say, every particle is held together by vibration.
Vibration. Okay, that concept appears in many spiritual traditions, too.
Right. And here's his core principle from that. Lowering vibration of any particle makes it solid. Increasing vibration makes it light.
So solidity is just a lower vibrational state in this view.
That seems to be the idea he's working with. It's definitely a surprising bridge he builds there. Ancient ideas, modern scientific concepts, all woven together.
And what's fascinating is how he uses this synthesis. He's basically saying matter vibrates at different frequencies, which you hear in some spiritual circles, and it's a sort of very simplified take on some physics ideas.
Simplified, yeah.
And he suggests that by tuning these vibrational frequencies, beings could shift from a higher, less dense dimension into our physical world.
So it's not physics as a lab scientist would describe it.
No, definitely not. It's Naidu applying these concepts creatively to explain a spiritual event. So in Sanathan Dharma, according to him, this Manu community existed in another realm, maybe a higher vibrational dimension.
Okay.
And they then descended to a lower dimensional frequency to appear as solid beings when Earth was ready or created.
Appearing rather than evolving conventionally over millennia.
Correct. And for Naidu, the power of this explanation is that he feels that it would make everything more likely to be a truer story than Adam and Eve.
Because it offers a mechanism, however analogical for appearance, and avoids the incest issue he raised earlier.
Exactly. The insight here isn't just what he says, but how these spiritual narratives sometimes adapt, or you could say, borrow the language of science to support their claims.
Using science as a framework, maybe, rather than direct proof.
I think that's a good way to put it. It's an example of belief systems evolving to resonate with current understanding, even if it's through analogy rather than strict scientific alignment.
That makes sense. So, okay, wrapping our heads around this, what does this all mean for you listening in?
Yeah, bringing it back.
We've basically looked at this really interesting comparison. On one side, Naidu's critique of Adam and Eve, focusing on that incest implication as a logical and moral problem.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other, Sanathan Dharma's Manu story. Diverse races appearing together, not necessarily starting in Africa as we know it, but maybe from a higher dimension, explained using analogies from quantum physics about vibration and materialization.
It's a very different picture.
It really is. What this deep dive shows, I think, is just the huge range of human thought on these massive questions, and how ancient ideas can get reinterpreted in really modern, sometimes scientific-sounding ways. Makes you look beyond just one story, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And connecting that back to the bigger picture, these origin stories, they're not just history lessons, are they? They really shape how we see ourselves. Human nature, our place in the universe, our collective identity.
They have real weight.
They do. So exploring these diverse perspectives like we did today with Naidu's work, it's really valuable for getting a richer, more nuanced view of the world. It helps you understand the core ideas instead of just getting lost in, conflicting details.
Cutting through the noise to the core concepts.
Exactly. This dive gives you a focused look, a different angle on questions people have asked forever. It shows how different cultures can imagine the very beginning so, so differently.
Yeah, profoundly differently. Well, thank you for joining us on this pretty mind-bending deep dive into human origin stories, focusing on Hanshi Deena Naidu's perspective from his book.
It's been fascinating.
It really has. Examining how these ancient ideas meet modern science, even analogically, is quite something. Hopefully it sparks some curiosity for your own explorations.
And maybe it raises an important question for you to think about. How does our idea of truth change when ancient wisdom and cutting-edge science start using similar language, even if just as analogy, to talk about reality?
That's a good one.
And are there other ancient stories out there that might hold surprising parallels or challenges to how we usually think about history, science, and just being? What else might make us rethink what we think we know?
Really powerful questions to sit with. Okay, until next time, stay curious, everyone.
And keep diving deep.